to the Calvin and Trey Radio Show, hosted by...
I'm Trey.
And I'm Calvin, of course. All right, Trey, what are we going to get to this week?
I know you're pretty mad about a certain ranking system that just came out today.
Really, Trey? Why do you say that?
Because that's what you've been talking to me about for the last hour.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we're going to call it the playoff committee or whatever the official term for them is exactly. I don't get the ranking system, period. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me as it goes right now. Alabama can have a loss against a horrible... okay, well, they're not that bad, I guess, overall as a team. They probably beat a couple of Big 12 teams, but a pretty bad Ole Miss team, and still be ranked number 2 in the country. And might I say, in this game, Trey, it wasn't like Ole Miss won on a last-second field goal. Ole Miss won by a touchdown.
Yep.
So, to say that it was a fluke win for them or whatever, no, I mean, Ole Miss has a quarterback who's pretty good. Just Ole Miss, They
have their moments.
Right, but overall right now, the SEC, each conference has a lot of teams that are really good, in my opinion.
Yes.
There's a lot of parity in football, and especially in the Power 5 conferences overall. And right now as it stands, man, why? Why is it the Big 12 that gets the short end of the stick?
Very true. After this, last weekend, I could see, my prediction was, OSU's probably going to be top 7, maybe. I mean, I can take 8. I know you don't like it, but I can take 8. I mean, we were the biggest mover-uppers by 6 spots, and that's pretty much...
Mover-uppers, yep.
Yeah, mover-uppers. So, I mean, it is the biggest move by anybody on the rankings. So... I'm glad they recognized us. I mean, we basically took over TCU's spot, and we pretty much just flip-flopped teams.
Yeah.
Because we were about 14, 15, depending on your poll. And TCU is now 15.
Here's my biggest question for SEC fans. Besides teams in the SEC, who have not proven to be completely world beaters, since now every team in the SEC, correct me if I'm wrong here, has a 1 loss at least. Who have they played?
Who played?
Who has, SEC as a whole, right?
Well, I mean...
Each team has 1 loss, right?
Yeah.
Each team is not shown that it's above and beyond dominant. LSU could go out and win out the rest of the season, and I would put them above Alabama because the only team they lost to was what looks to be a pretty good Alabama team. They lost by 20 points because they held Leonard Fournette to a really average game.
Below average for him.
Below average for him, of course. Well, anything below 200 yards below average for him.
Yeah.
But my point is that as the SEC stands right now, who has SEC played, man?
I mean, they did play OU. Tennessee did.
Right. And OU won, right? At Tennessee, right?
Tennessee.
Okay. Tech beat Arkansas, right?
Yeah.
There's something else I'm forgetting as well. I know this. But as it stands right now, why is the SEC just so much better than everyone else?
Yeah. And now, after looking at Notre Dame's schedule, I kind of get why they're in the top 4. I mean, I still would never put them there, in my opinion. But, I mean, they did play ranked opponents, Georgia Tech, Temple, now Navy, which his only loss was to Notre Dame.
Right.
So... it's really dependent. I still don't like the fact that Notre Dame is top 4. I could see him top 5, maybe 5 or 6, but not in the playoffs.
Here's my thing. So if the playoff committee is going, hey, Iowa hasn't played anyone, then who has Ohio State played?
Who?
If the playoff committee is going, let's put Iowa at 5 and not in the top 4 because Iowa hasn't played anyone, then who has Ohio State played? Besides being the national championship, winner of last year, which merits, of course, some respect. Of course it does. Not discrediting that, especially if you're an Ohio State fan. But, who has each team played at this point? If the argument is that the Big 12 is the weaker conference out of the Power 5, then... besides the Pac-12, I guess, because technically we still have Baylor up there, and the next team they got Stanford, but Every team in the Pac-12 is a one loss, and there's 2 teams in the Big 12
that are undefeated.
That are undefeated. So, like, what are we telling fans here? Hey, don't worry about it. They're an undefeated team. You know, they're having a great season. They just beat a number 8 team at home and had their quarterback at 4. Their defense forced the quarterback into 4 interceptions, and a Heisman Trophy candidate is no longer one because of this game. It was nationally televised, but ESPN didn't pick it up, so don't worry about it.
Yeah,
like it doesn't matter. You know. Oh, but Baylor. Who has Baylor played?
Nobody.
Baylor's just been more dominant than OSU in every game they played,
true.
which is a clear and above a reason to be 6th overall versus 8th,
and
which I understand.
Everybody in the Big 12's big part of their schedule is coming up this month.
Well, yeah,
all November. That's it. That's all it is big games, except for except for OSU this weekend. Because they play Iowa State.
Well, yeah, there's just a lot. There's, like, besides Baylor OU, there's not really, like, you know, a
big
team with playoff implications this week because we beat TCU.
I mean, there is one more, Alabama versus Mississippi State.
That's not gonna. Alabama should win that game. Alabama's number 2 in the country, man.
Yeah. I mean, you also have a good point, too. I think it's the committee is looking at, like, how the schedule is for everybody and how many ranked opponents they played. Because that's probably the only reason why Notre Dame's up in the top 4. I don't know why. Because Alabama's played a couple of good top 25 teams. At their time, they were supposed to be top 20.
Right.
Clemson's only played two top 25 teams, and then nobody, pretty much. Because you got Notre Dame and then Florida State, and then there's a drop-off on their schedule. Easily drop-off. And I would hate to see that rematch of Notre Dame versus Clemson. I just don't think it would be fair to Clemson, because Notre Dame would only have to beat Clemson once in the season. Meanwhile, Clemson had to beat Notre Dame twice in the season. Same concept with the 2011 championship game with LSU and Alabama.
Right.
And
that's the dumbest thing possible that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. It was at the time, and it is currently now.
It still is. It's going to be one of the worst things that has ever happened, and that's probably the reason why they got rid of the traditional BCS. Hey, we're going to pick 2 teams for the national championship, and now they have this playoff system, which I think is working so far.
But it's showing its flaws this year, and it's definitely showing a lot more flaws than we thought. What we stated right here is that at the end of the season, right? Houston has a chance to, of the 6 teams that are undefeated, Clemson, Ohio State, Houston, Oklahoma State, Iowa, and of course Baylor. Of those 6 teams, only Houston has a real chance to stay
undefeated,
completely undefeated, without going up against another undefeated team. Am I right in saying that?
Their biggest, yes. I mean, I don't know in their division, but
of those 6 teams, Houston, Iowa, Ohio State, because
everybody plays
Baylor.
Is that where you're
who's
trying to?
The 6th team now?
What type of point are you trying to make again?
Okay, at the end of the season, Clemson and Houston are the only 2 teams that do not face another undefeated team the rest of the season, right?
True. Well, Utah, or not Utah, but Houston does play Memphis.
Right, but just listen real quick here. Of the teams that play the rest of the season, right, there's 6 undefeated teams, only 2 of those teams will not play another undefeated team the rest of the season.
Okay.
And as it plays out, none of those teams have played an undefeated team in the last 2 weeks.
True.
So, as it stands right now, why does Clemson get all the credit they do? I understand some of it, but hey, Notre Dame only lost by 2, and that game was at Clemson.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame, I'm sorry, I don't think that they're world beaters either. It just doesn't look like it. They barely beat a Temple team that now no one credits with anything.
Yeah.
And that was at Temple. So, what is the basis of opinion here when it comes to the polls? Is it just looking at, each game one by one and seeing, oh, look, Alabama's scoring about 30. And in the NFL, they score about 30 a game, or whatever it is. Alabama looks like a pro-style team. That's why they're number 2 in the country. If that's the narrative we're going forward, then we really need to pay attention to a stat that Glenn Spencer talked about in his post-game interview after the OSU win, which is points per possession.
Yes.
Okay?
That makes it
right, because dear playoff committee, I am sorry that OSU is better than every team that is in the, if we go by this stat. I'm sorry that Baylor and OSU are clearing away the best teams in college football. Because I am so sorry about that. Because if we're going by the stat, then I'm so sorry that OSU scores so quickly. And I'm so sorry that Baylor scores so quickly. And I'm so sorry that other teams are scoring quickly than, Alabama. I'm so sorry that we're scoring more points because we have the ball more and more possessions and we score quicker. And we're more efficient.
Because I believe it was
what are we... I'm so sorry we have better play calling that's more effective against weaker defenses. I'm so sorry that going in on this, that really... that if you want to put this statistic to the... if you're saying Alabama is the best team in college football, right? Or you're saying Clemson is, right? Because they don't score a lot or they don't... You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm so sorry OSU scores a bunch because we get the ball a bunch and we have the opportunities to score. Like, what do you want me to say here? Yeah. Would you rather have a game where TCU gets the ball 100 times and only scores on 5 of those on 5 of those snaps and, Because what are we saying here to college football fans?
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm so sorry that the hurry up offense that's now being shown in the pros as well. It's just, I'm so sorry. It's too progressive for the NCAA. What are we?
Yeah. Bama only played had only 47 plays, give or take. I think it was about 47. And then TCU had 102, if I'm right, plays per game, which is just dramatically different. But TCU and Bama scored about the same, and TCU had the ball more, if that makes sense. And so it just it just boggles my mind. They don't take that into credit. They need to add that for the fast-paced teams, which are all the Big 12 teams pretty much, because that's how their offenses work. They're all fast-paced. And then I'm sorry, I don't like watching a really, really slow 40-play per team SEC team, because that's what they pretty much do. Only have 40 plays because they're going to run out the clock, but they're going to be the most hardest yard you'll ever get. But I don't know. It's not my type of tea. I like fast-paced offenses.
I like fast-paced offenses too. That's kind of the environment we're growing up in. We see a lot of Big 12 games where that's what happens, and that's kind of what you see. And there's a lot of opportunity. Each team has the chance and the opportunity to go score down the field.
Yep. Every play.
On every play. And I'm so sorry that Alabama cannot, doesn't have quarterbacks that are just that good. And
I don't
I'm sorry your offense isn't that good and your defense is so good that it just... But here's the thing, is that if the SEC has such great defenses, right, then why do they have so few possessions?
Yeah.
Because theoretically, if your defense is unbelievably good, you are creating a ton of 3-and-outs and a ton of possessions, and theoretically, you are giving your offense back the ball a ton of times, which we know is not happening.
I will support one thing for it, just to say why it's different for SEC and Big 12, is because they run the ball in an I formation, so they run the ball. And so that's always, the clock's always ticking, and they will wait until, the last 5 seconds to hike the ball. But in, Big 12 with OSU, Baylor, TCU, we hike the ball within, 5 seconds of it being in play and ready to go. Where, we look at the sideline, look at it once, hike, go, plays over, get another play off, super fast. We get...
Right.
We probably get, 2 plays off before they get 1 play off. Fair enough?
Right. Yeah, no, that's definitely fair.
So, they just have, in the SEC, it's just because they run the ball and in a I formation, and that's how it's brute force versus brute force, if that makes sense. Meanwhile, the Big 12's more fast agility style athletes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my point of just trying to break it up for you. Trying to be the bad guy.
Trey. Thank you.
I'm just putting it on both terms.
Thank you. So I guess the real thing that gets me is that if let's say, for example, Oklahoma State plays against Ohio State, somehow some way in the College Football Playoff. Let's say miraculously it happens. I don't think it'll happen. I just would like to say that the Final Four teams, we haven't done this. We didn't do this last week.
I kind of gave up on that.
Yeah, we should probably just just let the whole picking the Final Four teams go at this point, because we keep jinxing all the teams that we want to get there.
True.
Excuse me, or that we think will get there. My point though is, let's say OSU plays Ohio State, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say OSU is used to running.
Which OSU? I want to make sure.
Okay. I will from now on, just to let everyone know, I will say Ohio State University.
Okay.
Because Oklahoma State University is my OSU.
Okay. Making sure.
Yeah. I know. So let's say Ohio State University plays Oklahoma State University in a college football playoff game, and Oklahoma State University doesn't run the ball because we're not that good at it, but instead we pass the ball, and we just take away Ohio State's ability to scoot up and man up against the run, right?
Yeah.
So then we're able to run the ball a bit more, run out the clock a little more,
especially if JW's in there.
Right. And so we have a lot more time. We're just eating away at the clock.
Mm-hmm.
But then it gets to the fourth quarter. Both teams are currently pretty close to tied. Both teams have really prolific offenses. That's what each team is known for currently.
Mm-hmm.
And OSU ends up scoring twice in the final 5 minutes. Ohio State gets the ball back, but there's a turnover, or there's not a turnover, it's 3 and out. They'll score again. What's the story going to be from that game? That, it just shows the parity of one team being able to barely beat the other team, even though it's such a high-scoring game. There's so many chances for each team to come out on top. Versus if Alabama beats another team 30-7, because Alabama has just a massive running back and a massive offensive line, and they're good at that.
Mm-hmm.
They're good at running the ball, but their quarterback isn't really all that great, so they don't pass the ball, and they just end up running out the clock and score 3 touchdowns. If it's a 24-7 versus a 51-45 kind of thing, right? Of the two games that are played. Let's say Alabama plays Clemson, and Alabama ends up winning 24-7, and OSU plays Ohio State, and ends up winning 51-45. And then the narrative of each of those games is, OSU's probably not that good because Ohio State could have won, at the end, but Alabama just shut them down, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Alabama just didn't let the other team get many possessions, which is definitely a strategy thing. Yeah, I want to say that. It's definitely a strategy thing, and if it works, it works, man. Great job. But that's not our strategy.
No.
That's not what we're set up to do. That's not what any team in the Big 12 is set up to do. And really, as it stands right now, is that if you want the Big 12 to be more like the SEC, then stop rewarding the SEC for losing games early in the season against teams that are not that good.
Mm-hmm.
Ole Miss is not that good.
Yeah.
They're really not, though. So why is Alabama number 2 in the country?
Just because of their schedule and how favorable, and it's also because probably they've been in the playoff system for past 5 years easily in the top 5 for the past 5 years maybe. So they're giving them the benefit of the doubt probably, most likely. But that's also another curious thing that would happen between an SEC team and the Big 12 team is how many plays is actually going to go off. Is Bama going to get I'm just saying Bama because we're probably going playoffs.
Yeah.
If Bama goes against Baylor or OSU, how many plays are actually going to be played? And I think if it's over 100 plays, Bama won't win because they can't. They'll probably be tired because they're not used to being on the field that much, that 40 extra plays or whatever. And so that's just it really depends on the play, how many plays are being drawn up and done. So If it's more than 100 plays, I don't think the SEC teams would win. But if it's less than 40 plays, I don't think the Big 12 teams would win.
Right.
So, I mean, it's interesting. It's really, I get why you're mad.
Thank you.
So, it's, I don't know. But, I mean, I do see at least one SEC going into the playoffs.
Oh, yeah, no, an SEC team will get in. It's the, the Entertainment Southeastern Conference Professional Network. Is that what the ESPN is now? Just branded as that. Apparently an OSU fan brought up a sign that it was similar to that. I don't know if that was the exact wording, but that was similar to that. And some ESPN staff member took it away when we had the Sports Center at OSU. Mm-hmm. And some ESPN staff member took it away. I mean, here's my thing. Ole Miss, they're not horrible by any means. They're probably a pretty good team. They'll definitely make it to a bowl game. Yeah. As it stands. They're, overall right now, they're just, one loss behind LSU and Alabama in the Western Division of the SEC Conference. And overall as it stands, they're probably, they're right behind Florida just because they're the only team. They're one of the only teams with 2 losses still in the SEC. Mm-hmm. But as the rest of the season, as you think about Ole Miss, right? I mean, what more is there to say of, how can you defend Ole Miss? Really?
Defend them how?
Defend them as, not that bad of a loss, for Alabama.
Okay, if Ole Miss would not have lost to Memphis, I wouldn't have said it was a bad loss for Alabama. But now since Ole Miss, if they keep losing, of course, too.
Well, Memphis only has 1 loss, though.
That's true, but
But Memphis isn't in
a power conference.
Right.
That's the thing
And Memphis, I just want to say this, Memphis won 37-24 over Ole Miss, and I believe that game was at Memphis. So, whatever you want to put into being the home or away team, but then again, Ole Miss should have come in and hit Memphis in the mouth and won with the SEC style of play.
Yeah, totally.
Whereas, right now as it stands, Ole Miss has 2 losses.
3
First
losses. 3 losses.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You forgot about the Florida game.
No, I am sorry. I did forget about the Florida game and the game
which that one was
actually
just as bad.
I forgot about the game over this past weekend. I'm sorry, against Arkansas.
Yeah, Arkansas.
So, you're Ole Miss, right? And you're third in the SEC West because you only have 2 losses in conference. Then you have a loss against an unranked Memphis team currently. Yep. You have a loss against a Florida team, which at the time was ranked 25th, I guess.
And you got lost by 38-10, so...
Right. And then you lost to Arkansas over the weekend by 1.
In overtime.
So how good are you?
Yeah, and...
How good are you, Ole Miss?
They blew that game, too.
Right.
They had a third or fourth... Was it third or fourth? 4th and 31 or 3rd and 31. I don't remember. Probably it was both. And... It was this unbelievable play that happened for... Arkansas to come back and beat Ole Miss, which, things happen. Yeah, that happens all the time. But, you should close out games.
If I'm in the Big 12 right now, you know what I look at this and I think to myself?
What?
Why do we schedule all the teams that we play out of conference early in the season? Why do we not schedule them randomly through the schedule like the SEC does? So that, let's say OSU loses to TCU for the second game of the season, then OSU wins out the rest of the games. Why is OSU, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You're rewarding a team for losing early in the season. And I get it, the team has to, kind of merge together and, learn how each player, kind of performs and how each style of player, works into the offense. I get that. So you're probably not watching the greatest football early in the season. But you're really teaching every conference at this point. If you're the college football playoff committee, you're teaching every single conference to just schedule the teams that, and I'm sorry for using this word, but the out-of-conference, non-Power 5, cupcake kind of teams. What you're saying is, just schedule them whenever. Yeah. Don't schedule them early in the season. There's no reason to schedule them early in the season.
And don't schedule all your big games at the end.
Right, because if you lose early in the season, if Oklahoma State had lost to Central Michigan for the first game of the season by 1, and then we're sitting at 8-1 right now, we're not that bad, right? Because that's a narrative that everyone's being told.
Yeah.
OU lost to Texas, and OU's like 11? Only a couple spots behind us in the polls. Like, what are we?
They're 12.
What are we doing here, playoff committee?
Yeah, no, and Texas is not doing so well. I mean, they're.
Oh yeah, Texas. Oh, I'm so sorry, but we went to Texas and we beat Texas.
Yeah,
we didn't have half our fans in the stadium like OU did. In a neutral playing field. I'm sorry, OSU went to Texas and won. And yeah, we won barely. We barely won that game.
Thanks to the kicker.
And at the end, we probably would have played overtime and hopefully we would have won. Who knows? Mason Rudolph looked really banged up after the game, and I talked about it the week after on the radio show as well about, that OSU Texas game. But the college football playoff committee is basically saying early in the season, schedule whoever you want to schedule.
Yep.
You can schedule the high-profile Baylor, because Baylor, TCU. So, excuse me. In 2014, Baylor played TCU pretty early in the season. I believe that game was at Baylor, and TCU just barely lost. And at the end of the season, it turned out that the playoff committee voted that both teams were co-champions, even though one team had beaten the other team.
Yeah, no. That's just
I'm sorry. The Big 12 said both were, so they were co-champions or however it works out because each team had one loss. Yeah. But why?
That's another thing.
Why?
That's the one thing I talked about last week. That how the Big 12 really does need a championship game. Like split it up somehow, 5-5. I know it's not that hard to count, but they could split it up 5-5 and have a North Division and a South Division.
Or, just throwing this out there, we could throw in a couple other teams and have it 6-6 again and have an actual playoff, have an actual game at the end of the season, determine the real winner. And we would be saying that we had 12 wins going to the college football playoffs as opposed to 11. 11, right?
Yeah.
So if you're the college football playoff committee, and overall right now at the stands, you are just doing your best to rank each team as the best you see fit and how they play. You're not giving respect to the Big 12 because they haven't played anybody. Then who have the other teams in the other conferences played?
Because
let me know.
Ohio State hasn't played anybody, really.
And they won't play anyone until Michigan State at the end of the year, who already has a loss to Nebraska. And I don't care how anyone wants to say that Nebraska should have lost that game because the guy stepped out of bounds or whatever.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Nebraska, when they almost beat you, then you're not that good.
They had a win against a special team blocked the kick.
Michigan State should right now be sitting at least 2 losses, if not 3, because the Oregon quarterback went out in the first game of the season.
That's right.
So, right now as it stands, if you're Michigan State, man, you're lucky.
Yeah, you're really
lucky.
I mean, Notre Dame is the only one that has a fair saying of saying, hey, we played at least 3 top 25 teams at the time. Which is a very, very rough estimate of top 25. Alabama, of course, because almost every SEC team's in the top 25 at some point because everybody loves the SEC. So Alabama's good. Clemson, your only wins were Notre Dame and Florida State. That's it. Nobody really biggie.
And when against Notre Dame, you had at home and you only won by 2.
And it was raining.
Yeah. Well, I don't give a crap about the rain or the playing field condition doesn't matter to me unless someone's saying like they should score more points because of the rain. What I'm saying is that if you win by 2 to a Notre Dame team that didn't practice with this quarterback the whole offseason and instead was practicing with another guy as the starting quarterback, you're not that great. And Notre Dame will play Stanford at the end of the year, but I hope Notre Dame loses, but Notre Dame also has 1 loss and is above Baylor.
Yeah.
Right now, I'll try to take the bias out of it. I'll try to stop talking about OSU because I'm biased. I know this. I'm biased. I know this. I'm not even gonna have to necessarily say why. Oh, we. Okay,
we.
Thank you.
We. Or I. Whatever
there you go.
want.
There you go.
Whatever you want me to say.
You forgive me, man. Right now, as it stands, why Why does a Notre Dame team who has one loss, why are they in the top 4?
Because they played against Temple, and they played against Georgia Tech, and they played against Navy.
Notre Dame should also have another loss at least.
Mm-hmm.
And that loss should definitely have been to Temple. I mean, Temple should have won that game.
I mean, last
There's
year...
a lot of parity in every conference right now. That's all I'm getting from this discussion, is that they're all 5 power conferences. There's just a lot of... There's not a real way, because this season, there's a lot of teams have played just in-conference games, and not a lot of teams played outside of conference games. So, I mean, Ohio State hasn't gone to play like some elusive game against LSU early in the season or something like that, you know? That I would originally call kind of crazy, but I guess it's not that crazy. So, teams are scheduling really easy teams because they want to go undefeated, because that's the way you get in the playoffs. And right now, as it stands, then a 1-loss SEC team and a 1-loss non-conference team, because Notre Dame isn't even in the Power 5 conference. They're not in a conference.
Yay, being independent.
Don't even get me on that. Don't even get started on that one. So, if you're Notre Dame, good job. Way to go, Notre Dame. You did it exactly how the National Playoff Committee would love you to do it.
Apparently.
The only thing better for them is that if you had won
against
every
Clemson.
Game. Yeah, if you had won every game.
Well, I mean...
But even then...
If they went undefeated, yes, I could see them easily being in the top 5, or top 4. If they went undefeated.
Notre Dame?
Yes.
No, Notre Dame's already in the top 4. Notre Dame has to beat a Stanford team, and they've got 2 other games.
Yeah.
They've got 2 other games. They've got a Stanford
Wake Forest,
team.
Boston College.
And Stanford.
And Stanford. Supposedly.
If you're Notre Dame, hats off to you. Good job on your schedule. Good job on your season. If you beat Stanford, the College Football Playoff Committee clearly just loves the money that you bring to the table.
Yeah. Sheesh. I could see us being... I wish they would have switched us and Stanford being 7-8, but there's nothing more. I don't know. Eventually all these teams will get a loss. Iowa will eventually have to play somebody in the...
Iowa or Ohio State, one of those 2 teams
is going to get a lose.
And one of those teams should be behind Oklahoma State. But let's say it's a really close game.
Which one? Ohio State?
Let's say both teams went out.
Uh-huh.
And it's a really close game, and Ohio State's played Michigan State and won.
Michigan State is not that great now.
Right, but you know what? They're pretty darn good in those college football playoff rankings.
Oh, yeah.
They're not below 15. You know, Michigan has Michigan's the best 2-loss team in that, at 14. So what? If I was a college football playoff committee, I would reward teams for winning games. I would go, you know what? The real measure of how good you are is if you can win a game or not. And right now as it stands, there's 6 undefeated teams. Houston's the only one that I'm not even really that mad about their ranking. I think they should be probably in the top 20 because they're undefeated, but they haven't played really anyone until this Memphis game this weekend. So, go for it. Go for it, playoff committee. Really, just go for it. I would still be mad if I'm a Houston fan. I'm pissed, but as an Oklahoma State University fan, I'm not that mad. And my point though is that if I was a college football playoff committee and I'm making these decisions about how I want teams to schedule games and make more money and profit in the future for not only me and my committee, but also for themselves, and to expand the game of college football to even be even bigger than what it is now, which, there's always room to grow. I would reward the teams that are undefeated. I would say that, you know what, Notre Dame, you don't deserve to be in the top 4. You really don't. You've played teams, but you did have a loss. And I would say, Oklahoma State, you win it. You forced a team to have 4 interceptions. Baylor hasn't played anybody. That's the thing. It's like, Baylor has a lot of convincing wins. They still haven't played anyone.
Would you say, okay, my question though, because that's what they kind of did last year, is based on teams that have won and lost last year, the Final Four.
Yep.
Because they were, pretty much every single one of those teams, except for Alabama, shocker, was undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
So, last year, I think they nailed it with the whole entire thing. This year, it looks like they're going in a different direction, which is a little irritating.
Like, how... So the ACC last year, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
The ACC had the same teams last year that they do this year.
Except it was in reverse, where Florida State was undefeated and Clemson...
I wouldn't call that reverse, but yeah, I get what you're saying here. Right now as it stands, right, you've got... last year the ACC didn't have teams to play. You know, Florida State was beating a lot of teams that weren't that good, and they were barely winning, but heck, Florida State was undefeated, so we put them at number 4 overall, you know, to play in the college football playoffs. And then they ended up losing, you know, Oregon, basically at home, you know, in a much closer game to Oregon than to Florida State in the Rose Bowl. Ended up winning, and Oregon went to the national championship. Florida State had a shot. If you're Oklahoma State right now, or Baylor, or Iowa, aren't you a little worried?
Yeah, I would be.
Because let's say you're Iowa, you win on a field goal against Ohio State in the Big Ten, you know, playoffs. I would assume Ohio State would be dropped out of the top 4. But if they've been in the top 4 for every single game and up until then, it's going to be a decision the College Football Playoff Committee is going to have to make of, do we put a one-loss Ohio State team in the, you know, playoffs? Let's say, for example here, just on the what-ifs. Let's say,
what-ifs again.
Yeah. Oh, of course, we do this every week. You know this. So let's say Oklahoma State loses, Baylor loses. Each of those teams is one loss, right? But not against each other. Yep. So let's say Baylor loses to OU at home.
Okay.
Oklahoma State then beats Baylor.
But loses to OU.
To end the season,
Which
right?
I would believe OSU would be champions as long as TCU loses along the way somewhere.
Well, no, I think OSU would have the... I think OU would be above everyone else.
Would they? Even
because they beat Baylor.
I was saying that they.
Oh, if they lose to Baylor, yeah, okay. Either way as it is, that's not my point though. That's not my point completely.
Okay,
I'm saying that let's say Baylor and Oklahoma State both have one loss to end the season, no matter how it works out, who's champion, who's not. Okay. Right? Let's say Ohio State loses to Michigan State and Iowa loses to Ohio State. Right, to end the season out. Right.
Okay.
So. Every team but Clemson, because I'm assuming Clemson will win out.
Clemson's already pretty much locked in, pretty much, at this rate.
If you're a Clemson fan, knock on some wood there, because I guarantee you every single team wants to beat the crap out of you and is going to run every single trick play they've ever thought of in their heads to beat you guys, to gain national attention and some media coverage of their school. So, let's say of all the Power 5 conferences, let's say Houston wins out too. Let's say of all the Power 5 conferences, besides Clemson, each team has a loss, right?
Okay.
Who's the top 4?
Well, apparently they're going to go with Alabama.
Of course. How can we forget? But I think LSU sneaks back in.
Yeah.
And I think Notre Dame's there, and I think that's it.
Really?
Yeah.
So it would be Clemson, Alabama, LSU, Notre Dame. If Notre Dame is undefeated, right? Or
Notre Dame only has a one loss to the number 1 team in the nation.
Okay. And then we'll probably have another repeat game of Clemson versus Notre Dame again. Yay, I'm so excited about that.
Well, let's say it's structured just a little bit differently so that doesn't happen, because no one wants... If you're a fan of college football, you don't want to watch that again. You don't.
And then it would be a repeat of LSU, Alabama again.
Right. You don't want to watch every college football playoff fan, so let's say that doesn't happen. Let's say LSU ends up playing Clemson, and Alabama ends up playing Notre Dame.
Which there's still likelihood of that happening to the national championship.
As it stands today, there's a likelihood.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I just don't like that.
Then everyone's yelling at the playoff committee.
Yeah.
We're done. Playoff committee sucks. Do something new.
Yeah.
Expand it to 8 teams, expand it to 6 teams, and give each of the top 2 teams a bye week, or do something. Because that's dumb.
I mean...
If I'm a fan of college football, the last thing I want to see on New Year's Day when I'm watching all of these teams in the college football playoffs, the 2 games on that day, the last thing I want to see is games I've already seen. The last thing I want to see is teams playing each other again. Right? So, if you're the college football playoff committee, aren't you almost obligated to put a Big 12 team in? No matter how it turns, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know if they will feel obligated because I know
they may not. They may not be. They're not obligated.
Yeah.
As it stands right now, if the season ends today, they're not obligated.
Yeah.
And they have a team from each different, from different conferences in there, or slash Notre Dame, and it's not in a conference. So, one, right now as it stands, you're giving a lot of credit to Notre Dame because they're not in the conference. So if I'm like any team looking at this, I'm like, why are we in a conference?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
why are we in a conference? Because if this happens again, whatever. But I understand why to be in a conference, of course.
Yeah.
Of course,
you get sense. That easy scheduling.
Right.
And
yeah.
It's easier to
just a ton of benefits overall.
Yeah.
So it comes up on 40 minutes of talking just about college football, which I'm sure we could go the whole hour on this. Really, why? I do see a way that the Big 12 gets left out. Especially if Ohio State wins out. Especially if Ohio State wins out, Notre Dame wins out, Clemson wins out, and Alabama wins out. I definitely see a way, man.
I
don't think that OSU beating Baylor at home and OU at home is really going to impress the playoff committee that much.
Hey, I mean that's what Clemson did. 2 home games.
But it's not.
Yeah.
Like we weren't vaulted to 1 win behind Baylor. You know what I mean? To 1 spot behind Baylor. We're still behind Stanford. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say Stanford wins out, ends up beating Notre Dame again. Then wouldn't Stanford take Notre Dame's spot, and that's it, man?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Am I wrong on this? I mean, Stanford wins out.
And we always thought that the Pac-10 was Pac-12.
Yeah. No, Pac-12. Yeah.
Pac-10, Pac-12 was, weak because they kept knocking each other out except for Stanford, apparently. But, I don't know. There needs to be clear-cut, cookie-cutter decisions by the ranking committee to tell us, hey, this is the reason why you're a good team.
Right. Like, somebody get on the radio, somebody get on the air right now and just let me know what's going on here, because this is
a little stressful.
Nah. Stop it. Stop it, playoff committee. Please, just, quit it now.
So, you want to move to NFL?
Well, almost.
Almost? You have one more word?
Almost, man. Because you know what I was thinking about?
What?
You know who Stanford lost to?
Who?
Northwestern.
Oh.
And you know what? A lot of people said after that game,
Stanford was out of it?
Stanford's a not good team. They're really, not good. What the ESPN caption here for that game, back on, back when it was played, first week of September, was error-free Northwestern upends number 21 Stanford.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, it was at Northwestern, and granted, Northwestern won by 10. To make it, the game was 16-6. But Stanford kicked 2 field goals to win the game. Northwestern at least scored 1 touchdown. To lose the game. Northwestern at least scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
So, why are we rewarding a Stanford team for going, for having a loss early in the season? It just compounds the fact and ends really my point, and should just really nail that in the coffin. If you are going to lose games, lose them early in the season, because you can still do great things later, and you can still make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
It's just sad. I'm sorry. It's just real sad. Yeah, we should start talking about the NFL now.
You make a good point.
Thank you.
Anyways, so, moving on to the NFL. Maybe it might cheer you up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Those Dallas Cowboys lost in overtime real well, man.
I didn't want to bring it up already.
Didn't your Falcons team lose as well to, who again did they lose to, Trey?
I don't know. Did they lose? I didn't even pay attention.
Trey,
come
on, man.
San Francisco. Oh, man.
Well, let's talk about this, because I don't want to talk about the Cowboys lost in overtime to the Eagles. So, Blaine Gabbert leads 49ers best Falcons. Yeah, the Falcons are now 6-3 in the season. The 49ers are 3-6.
I think
how ironic.
Finally figured out how to play against Atlanta. Because they didn't know it the first couple of weeks. And then they finally realized, hey, their offensive line's not that good. And I said this for a couple of weeks now, so I think the 49ers picked it up too. So, I mean, I mean, they did They did make a comeback. I mean, they did score a field goal to make it within 1 point. So, but yeah, yeah. And they didn't have Kaepernick, and it's just backup quarterback and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how we're gonna.
It's not a good loss. At least the Cowboys still don't have Romo, but okay. But I think the Falcons will be fine. I think the Falcons still make the playoffs. If we are, because I'm going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. Of course I am.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, that was a decent game, I would have to say.
What, this one?
Yeah.
Dallas Cowboys Eagles.
Yeah.
A decent game.
It was going back and forth, and it just happened that the Eagles got the ball in the first.
Oh, man, if you're the Cowboys, you just really need some offense, man. Or not really you need some defense, man. Like, really, it's just showing that, Matt Castle can go out there and, score a couple touchdowns. But you can still end up losing the game in overtime. I mean, the loss is heartbreaking and hard to, say. Dallas's drafted players in the first or second round, almost, for the past couple of drafts now, that have been on the defensive side. Mm-hmm. The Dallas Cowboys have a great offensive line overall right now as it stands.
It's decent. Let's just say that.
Okay, yeah, it's decent at least.
It's decent.
I'll stick with decent. Decent's fine. I'll stick with decent. Decent's fine, man. We can stick with decent.
All right.
The Dallas Cowboys really just, they need some playmakers on defense.
And I don't think Dez is 100% yet. Even though they say that he's 100%, I don't think he's 100%.
I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah, he did make a great catch, though.
And I do want to say this. I think Greg Hardy should no longer be playing in the NFL.
Why is that?
I mean,
oh yeah,
really?
That's true. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Greg Hardy for domestic abuse charge.
I'm just making sure we were on the same page.
Yeah, no, he should not be playing in the NFL. Jerry Jones is just not playing. Is not playing. It's not real smart. So, one, I will agree you can't just discard guys who make mistakes, but you can't suspend them for a whole dang year at least. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because if you suspended for the whole year, you're telling me that some team wouldn't pick him up on, minimum salary next year? Some team would. Probably Dallas Cowboys. So, as it stands right now, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you're just really waiting on Tony Romo to come back, man. You're like, any Tony Romo news, you're just itching to, read and see and get at because he's apparently the savior. And the Dallas Cowboys are definitely last in their division now. And New York has 5 wins, and Dallas Cowboys have 2. And it's looking real tough for Dallas to get in the playoffs, man. With 6 losses.
Yeah. Do you think they'll bring back Romo if he is healthy? At this point,
I could see Romo coming. I could see Romo coming back against the Redskins after the Panthers game.
At this point, yes, they can't really win. I don't know if they can win the division, but it's almost safer.
They're not going to get a wild card.
Yeah, I know. It's almost safer to bench him and make sure he's healthy for the rest of the season, in my opinion, because I don't want to get him hurt again.
What are you saying here, Trey?
I say don't let Romo start for the rest of the year, just before health reasons. Because you're not.
So you're saying season's done right now as Dallas Cowboys stand.
Yeah,
it's over. It's done. Because a second ago you just said bring him back when he's healthy.
Yeah,
it sounded kind of like it was this season, but no. I mean, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, if you end up losing this game at the Buccaneers this weekend, your season's over, man.
Yeah, Buccaneers.
It's hard.
Yeah.
7 losses, and then let's say Tony Romo comes. Let's say miraculously you go on, and then a 7-game winning streak, and you're 9-7
and
in
you
the year.
have to play at Green Bay. I don't see it.
You still have to play at the Bills. Got to play the Redskins twice, which are never easy, and you still got to play the Panthers, even though it's at home.
So that's why. That's why I say. I know a lot of people won't.
Real high on this team.
They could literally bench Romo and maybe Dez just to keep him healthy for the rest of the year. Maybe. if they lose a couple more.
Yeah, if the Dallas Cowboys lose 2 more games this season, let's say they lose the next 2, for example.
Yeah.
Then you know what? I would definitely, I would say that's it. Let's say the season's over. Right there, let's just get everyone healthy for next year. I would still have Dez playing.
Okay.
Because you paid him that contract to go play.
Limited
and he's
snaps?
limited snaps, kind of a like, gotta play sometime. You know what I mean, man? Like, get some use out of the wide receiver you just gave a ton of money to. So at this point, if I'm the Dallas Cowboys, I'm definitely playing Dez the rest of the season because he says he's healthy and he wants to play. And I am really checking in on the availability of Tony Romo.
Yeah.
Daily
and
daily because that's your guy. That's your guy, man.
They could also just say we're done with Romo too, possibly, and go
this
in the
off
draft.
season.
Yeah.
At this point, anything's a possibility with Romo because the Cowboys have just shown. But the Cowboys need help other ways.
Yeah.
That's what really this has shown is that you can put a Wheaton who's not great. You can put a Castle who's maybe a little better than Wheaton, maybe not. We don't know. We don't know for sure because both guys still lost games.
Yeah.
Neither guy has won the game.
They didn't really give Wheaton much.
They did not open the playbook, but they definitely. But then they're also kind of, Matt Castle kind of got super, super lucky with that just heaved to Des Bryant.
Yeah.
So you're not really,
you got lucky that
how good is either quarterback? But right now, as it stands, man, like,
yeah.
Whew.
I mean, I feel sorry for the Cowboys in a way because they were. Well,
I feel sorry for Cowboys fans.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for the Dallas Cowboys. I feel sorry for Dallas Cowboys fans because you know what?
You deal with this on every single year.
I think I said this before, but this offseason I went and bought the first NFL jersey that I've ever bought of myself, of course, and bought Des Bryant jersey. He ended up getting injured in the first game, but the Dallas Cowboys still won the first 2 games of the season back to back. And I was able to wear that jersey the next 2 days because that was my thing of, like, if Dallas Cowboys win, I'll wear the jersey. And now it's been 6 straight weeks of just, Nope. I think I wore it in the bye week, but.
That counts for something.
Right, yeah.
It does look like the Giants are going to win this division, though. And sad, but true, but it looks like the Giants are more likely to win the division.
Yeah.
Redskins, not really.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Eagles, maybe.
Eagles could realistically as well, man.
Yeah. I think Chip's system's finally coming in a way, but I don't know if it's 100%.
Well, here's the thing that no one talked about Chip system, and then of course I heard it on ESPN, so now I'll talk about it. Is that he's fantasy football owners of running backs for the Eagles would be Matt, or probably just don't even own a player at this point. Maybe they own Matthews or Murray, but they don't own Sproles for sure.
Yeah,
I would think. But the Eagles really use a lot of fresh legs, and then they use their running backs to run routes as well, really trying to get the most diverse and use play calling to your advantage of what you've got in the backfield. And if guys have hands, go throw them the ball. So, So Eagles are good. And they, as long as they stick to the motto of we'll use players that are good
and
fresh over players who have repeated touches and consistency. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They're more of a they're the hurry up college football offense.
Well, yeah, that's the offense they have, man.
Yeah. And then the Colts are somehow still still winning their division with 5 losses. I think it's 5 losses. I think they're 3-5. So that's another sad division as well. That AFC. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, that's definitely
because the Jags not really doing well. Tennessee Titans not doing well. So yeah, it's going great for them too.
Yeah, it's really just a
those two
great NFL season, man.
Well, it is in other divisions, I would say. because Saints are coming back, and so the NFC South is looking really interesting.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. NFC South's looking good. Falcons. So what we thought might be one of the weaker divisions to start out the year, but now you've got teams like Falcons, Panthers, Saints. Yeah, all doing
Tampa
pretty
Bay's,
well. Tampa Bay's all right.
Can win a game here and there.
Yeah,
which they've proved.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, at least they're a little bit more, entertaining than some other divisions that we know of.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. For sure, Trey. So for the last 5 minutes here, definitely talk about NBA.
All right.
Thunder won tonight, so that's good. You know what I mean?
At the Wizards.
At the Wizards.
1-1.
Durant didn't play the entire second half, and due to a hamstring sprain. So we'll see how. Do
you think it's just a day-to-day thing, or
probably?
Is it? Do we know if it's the same leg that he had his?
I do not know off the top of my head. I got the information while we were here.
Yeah.
So we're preparing for this, so I'm not sure exactly.
Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of scared a little bit.
Kind of scared, of course. Yeah, if Durant's not able to play, but it's early in the season, man. So there's just a lot of time left. We're 7 games in now. Yeah. Oh,
and then the
Thunder are 4-3, and there's 82 games a season. Yeah, it'll be okay.
About Christmas time is when the next season kind of really picks up again.
Well, it's when it diverges from being the college football playoffs to really being about college football to kind of start talking about the NBA.
Yeah, usually.
Because right now, the NBA, I can go get really cheap tickets to go see a Thunder game.
Yeah, right now.
No one's really paying that much attention.
Yeah. So, is there any surprises for you in the NBA right now?
I am surprised a little bit by how the Hawks are doing.
Okay. Again?
Well, how they're not as good as people thought they would have been. Losing DeMarre Carroll to the Raptors, clearly that was going to be a disadvantage. But, the Raptors aren't doing too great. I am surprised, so definitely, by the Warriors, man. They are on just a streak.
Yeah, and you didn't think
they're lighting it up. I thought they'd be good, but it's so hard for a team to repeat, man.
And they're repeating, the exact same way they did last year, almost. Record-wise.
They're having incredible offensive efficiency. Yeah, if you want to say it like that, man, for sure. For sure.
Because I think they could get close to their record from last year.
Yeah.
Maybe within a couple of games here and there.
Yeah, I mean, they are clearly a really good team.
Yeah. Nothing really changed too much with them.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing major, I would say.
Nothing major. Yeah, you're right.
Usually, as long as you have Steph Curry.
Usually you lose a couple of players in the offseason, but besides losing David Lee, who wasn't a huge factor in the regular season for them.
He's still doing good, but he's not doing as good as he did with Golden State, I don't think. So that's always fun. And how's your surprise pickers, the Sacramento Kings, doing over there?
They had I read today that they had a meeting, a players-only meeting. They talked it out, and they feel more confident now. How are your Lakers doing, Trey? How are those Lakers doing, man?
Maybe Kobe will get back in it. Maybe, I don't know yet. We'll find out. It's still early. I'm still betting on them ish. Maybe not really because they're losing too many games.
How good is Kobe?
Apparently, he's not as good as I thought he would be. I'm
gonna have to say really that though, Trey, that I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Kobe.
I thought he would try to prove everybody wrong, but
I think he's definitely trying to prove everyone wrong. He just is not able to because he just doesn't have that much left, man.
Yeah, injuries and
Kobe right now needs to be 6th Man of the Year contender, not a starter for this Lakers team. D'Angelo Russell needs to get the ball basically every single minute he has a chance, and D'Angelo Russell needs to try to really, prove himself as a point guard.
Yeah.
Right now, Emmanuel Mudiay is just showing him up for the Nuggets, so
it's not as good as I thought it would be.
Right. Well, Trey, it is 9 o'clock, man, so we're going to go ahead and head on out of here for sure. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Thank you.